I knew I loved art. I didn't feel like I was an artist, I guess. Like one of the big things that really got my business off the ground was joining a women entrepreneurs like networking group. Going into motherhood, I definitely always had sort of that fear of like, how am I going to balance being a business owner and having a baby?
Hi, hello.
Hi, Natalie.
Hi, Abby. This is Abby Murphy Stewart. Welcome to Creator Jump Off.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to talk today.
Yeah, I'm so excited that you're here too. So just like real quick, so Abby and I did this I don't even know what you would call it, like a business accelerator program a year ago. And it was really fun and challenging. And
Yes.
you and I met there. We kind of with a couple other people, went off to the side and had some accountability calls and stuff. And it was really awesome. So that's kind of how we know each other.
Yes. I can't believe that was a year ago already.
I know. Yeah, I know it's wild how fast, we were just talking before the podcast,
yes.
How fast and slow life feels lately. So I'm going to tell the folks a little bit about you, and then we'll get into it. I have a whole bunch of questions for you. I'm so excited. So Abby Murphy Stewart is a brand photographer and educator helping entrepreneurs leverage brand photography for their businesses. Abby offers custom VIP brand shoots and a groundbreaking online course called Visual Content Toolkit to guide businesses in creating impactful visual stories. Abby not only takes the stress out of planning brand shoots, but also empowers entrepreneurs to drive revenue, foster connections, convert customers, and effortlessly market their offerings, all through brand photography. Ooh, I love that. I'm so happy that you're here. I want to get into everything that I just read and everything that you're offering, but I would like to just back up and kind of hear a little bit about how you got here. Talk to me about when you were a kid, were you into photography, or is this something that happened later on?
Yeah, as a kid, I definitely was. And I'm not sure what the impetus was for it. I think I was just drawn to it. I always had little cameras and little video cameras. I think the first camera I ever had, I don't even know the brand or anything, but it had 2 megapixels, and it was a terrible camera, right? Back in the early 2000s. And I just loved taking pictures of my friends and my dog and my, flowers in my backyard. And the big thing I remember about growing up and my love for photography was saving up one summer for an official Nikon DSLR camera. So that was in middle school for me. And I always just had a disposable camera on me, and just always had some type of camera. And I always loved scrapbooking. So actually taking those photos and making little albums and that kind of thing. As a kid, that was definitely part of a big hobby for me, part of what I really loved to do.
Do you remember how you got interested in it? Was there an event that happened or someone around you that was taking a lot of photographs?
Not really. No one in my family necessarily was even really an artist. My dad's an accountant, does CFO type things. My grandfather's an engineer, so didn't get any of that math gene or anything. And then, no one else really had that artistic gene in my family. So I can't remember a specific moment. I think I was always just drawn to cameras for some reason and always just had one on me. So I can't really remember why I wanted my first camera, but I remember that one summer where I was I must have this professional camera. So that's kind of the big memory for me.
I love it. And were you more into shooting landscapes or people, or what were you where did you kind of start out?
Yeah, as a kid, I was basically doing everything. So really with my disposable cameras, just taking pictures of my friends. If we had a school trip or we just went to the park one day, it was, just weird pictures of me and my friends, right? And then at home, I would just go out in the backyard and take pictures of the sunset, just very typical, cliche photography, beginner type stuff. So nothing in particular, really. But in high school, I had a really great art program. I was really lucky to have an amazing teacher, he was very into film photography, and he had like a little sign up in our classroom that said like digital with like a cross through it. And so he really taught me like the basics of photography, and sort of I understood how like a digital camera works and just the basics of photography through that class. And in that class, I did take more like artistic portraits and a few landscapes and that type of thing. So it kind of evolved into more of like an actual intention when I was in high school.
Wow. Okay. And then like through college, did you study photography?
I did, yeah. So I went to Rhode Island School of Design up in Providence, and I actually went into it thinking I was going to do graphic design because I had done some like summer programs in graphic design and just really like loved being artistic just in general. And I thought like with graphic design, I could get like a job, right? Like, photography, I just didn't have a sense of like what you could get as a job, but like graphic design, you could get a job at a company. Or at least I thought, right? So in college, freshman year, you just kind of have to take like the basic, everybody takes the foundation courses, but we have like a winter semester where you could do anything. So I took photography. And of course, I was like, well, this is what my major needs to be. So, yeah, I just fell in love with my teacher there and just knew that I didn't know, what I was going to do after graduation still, but I knew that I needed to study photography. So yeah, just had my BFA in photography, which is kind of crazy. Or fine arts, I guess, but with my major being photography.
I visited RISD when I was in college. I knew some people, so I went to School of Visual Arts in New York.
I saw that.
We would,
Yeah.
drive up to RISD every once in a while and stuff.
Yeah.
We love RISD kids. Yeah, I mean, talk to me a little bit about like for me, like SVA was really transformative, like as an artist and like being around a lot of artists and being in New York and stuff. And you said you had a photography teacher, professor that really spoke to you. Like, can you tell me a bit more about like that experience at RISD, or like, is there a story or like a certain class that you took that really kind of was pivotal for you?
Yeah. I mean, so my high school teacher, he actually went to RISD for painting. And so I grew up in Indiana, and then my family moved to Atlanta when I was in high school. So my high school was like a totally new start for me. And I had never, being in Indiana, I had never heard of any art schools really at all. And so, yeah, that teacher in high school was like, once I got into RISD and knew that I was interested in maybe going to an art school, he was like, you got to go to RISD, like you must. And so I was really scared to go because I was kind of like, I knew I loved art, but I was also like, I'm not really like, I didn't feel like I was an artist, I guess. Like I wasn't all art all the time. I had interest in English and, other things. So I almost went to like, just like a liberal arts school. But at RISD, I mean, just like you said with SVA, like the environment there is just incredible. Like whether or not you're going to become an artist, like the way of thinking, the way you learn how to look at art and think about design and all that stuff is so huge. And so that winter semester class I was talking about, my teacher in that class was one of my favorite photography teachers in college. And he taught us how to use like a specific film camera, and we did this project that was like 100 different prompts. And basically the whole semester, we just took this camera and had to create like a portfolio on these 100 prompts. And so I just loved that sort of freedom in creating whatever you wanted with photography and interpreting those things however you wanted. And then later he taught a class that was all about the business of photography. So that kind of led me into thinking how I could make this into like my job as a career later. So he kind of started me off at RISD and then ended my RISD career like senior year with that business class. So he was really pivotal too.
Wow, that's amazing that there was a business class for photographers at RISD. That's something like we didn't have at SVA. I remember our senior year, so I was a graphic design major. And at the end of the year, all of our teachers were like, ask us anything, like you're about to, go out into the wild. And, all of us wanted to talk about money, and like how to like negotiate salaries and stuff or make contracts or whatever. And they couldn't really help us because they had been out of the game for decades. And so they weren't really familiar with the marketplace that we were entering into.
Right.
So that's really amazing. So do you remember, like, was there a couple highlighted, like a couple things that stand out to you that you remember from that class?
Yeah, I mean, I always felt so lucky to have that class. It was like one semester. So like, I feel like we could have had, at least a full year of like a business, right? Like we all needed that. Like you said, like you can't just go to art school and then not have any way to like support yourself afterwards, right? So I was so lucky to have that class. But yeah, we did, one thing that really stands out about that class is we did like the branding work. So we actually spent the semester like thinking about like, okay, if we're going to have a business after this, like what would it be? Like, even if you're going to be like, if you want to be a gallery artist or like a commercial photographer or whatever it may be, he had us like write out a business plan and come up with our branding. So like I literally used what I created to make my first website. And it's pretty close to like what I've done now. I didn't necessarily know that I was going to focus on brand photography. I was kind of more thinking I would be in like magazine, like editorial work at that point. But it's still like very similar, and the look and feel of the brand and kind of what I wanted the brand to be is like so similar. So it's kind of fun to look back on.
That's amazing. Did you guys talk about money?
We did,
like,
yeah.
How to negotiate, or like how you establish like your fee or anything like that, your rate?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I'm sure we had like, at least one class. It was funny, like, I don't know about SVA, but the schedule that we did was we only had our classes like once a week for like, I think that type of class was probably like 5 hours or something once a week. And so like you literally have like one semester, like whatever it is, 10 classes. So each class was kind of based on a theme. So I'm sure we talked about money in some form, and it wasn't necessarily like how to set your specific pricing. But I feel like I learned that sort of afterwards, like just being in the trenches of like starting a business and like looking online and using some other influences of like people that had started businesses to sort of figure that out for myself.
Yeah. So let's get into that. So you graduate from RISD. So yeah, talk to me about like early, like your first few years out of college, being in the trenches, as you say.
Yes, totally the trenches. So when I was finishing school, I interned at Charleston Magazine. I'm in Charleston, South Carolina now. And I interned there because it was kind of close to home in Atlanta. So I did that over the summer. And so that's kind of where I did some like editorial work and that kind of thing. And I met some photographers there. And I met another photographer that actually went to RISD for grad school in photography. And she's a fine art wedding photographer. And she actually shot my wedding a couple of years ago. But I just reached out to her and said, hey, can I work for you when I come to Charleston? Because I just love Charleston and wanted to move there after I graduated. And so basically I just moved to Charleston with like the plan to assist these photographers and just kind of start my own business. So luckily I had some support from my parents, and they kind of gave me the green light to just move here and just try to like start a business basically, which is kind of crazy to think back on. Like, I can't believe I did that. Right. But so, yeah, I assisted some photographers for probably about a year. I second shot weddings with this photographer. And then I think I had my first sort of Abby Murphy photo client in like the beginning of 2016. So that was about 6 or 7 months after I graduated. So that was kind of the very early years. And then I went full time in my business in 2018. So basically from the time I graduated to the time I went full time in my business, I was assisting, second shooting. I worked at Madewell for a while, like had, 4 or 5 jobs kind of going at once. But it was crazy time, but it was definitely worth it.
Were they all, these jobs that you had, were they all like freelance or like contractor jobs, or were any of them like you were like full-time employee there?
Yeah, so all of them, I think, trying to think back on all of them, but I'm pretty sure all of them were just contract jobs, except for at Madewell, which was just like a retail job. Yeah, I worked at like a little wedding portrait studio, and I didn't even shoot there. I was just editing and like working on blog posts for them and that kind of thing. But yeah, pretty much everything was contract.
And how did you find these gigs, these jobs?
Yeah, so most of them were from connections at Charleston Magazine. So I just like reached back out to those people. As an intern, they would kind of send you on shoots with those photographers that they kind of use regularly. So you just got to go and like kind of shadow them. And so a couple of those I reached out to and they would hire me every once in a while. And it was hard because they wouldn't really have like a set schedule necessarily. So you just kind of had to keep reaching out and saying, hey, I'm available. Like if you need me, let me know if you have any shoots coming up. And Gail, the wedding photographer, I found her just on LinkedIn and I saw that we had both gone to RISD. And so I just reached out to her and we just had a call and she asked me a few questions and was like, yeah, come work for me. And yeah, just like some Googling, like the portrait studio I found and I saw that they were hiring. So yeah, just a lot of different ways, but just kind of like using my connections and in any way that I could. Yeah.
And something that you said too is it sounds like you were persistent. You like followed up with them.
Yeah.
This is something that like I talk to like clients that I work with about is I think sometimes there's a fear that you're bugging people.
Right.
But it's actually you're not. And if you are, hopefully they'll tell you to bugger off.
Exactly.
But I think like that's so valuable, you know, that you did that. And also like as someone on the other side of it where I've had jobs where people were, you know, like you like contacting me for work. I worked for a year at the New York Times and illustrators, you know, like found me on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And, you know, figured out the New York Times email structure. And so I did hire illustrators and whatnot, but I never like publicly said like I need an illustrator because I was just kind of searching secretly.
Totally.
But anyways, a lot of illustrators figured out my email and there's a few of them that would email me consistently. And I haven't worked there in like 5 or 6 years. And there's one illustrator who still emails me. He like found my personal email.
Yeah.
And anyways, all this to say, like, I was never bugged by it. And It was great because these people are really busy, right? So they forget they've got like a million things going on. They're not thinking about you 24/7.
Yes,
you know?
right.
So,
and as like a new person, like where you have almost nothing going on, like you feel like all you can think is like, oh my gosh, I need a job. Like, why aren't they looking at their email like I am all day? Yeah, totally.
Yeah. So I just want to like underline that, like that persistence and just being consistent and just be friendly. Hey, you know, how's it going? I actually just wrapped this shoot. I really wanted to share it with you because I think it's like really in line with what you know, your studio was doing or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. So then you get your first client for your own business.
Yes.
Talk to me about like getting that off the ground.
Yeah. So had like a handful of clients kind of here and there, like that sort of beginning of the year, that 2016. So that was like, 6 or 7 months after I graduated. And one of the big things that really got my business off the ground was joining like a women entrepreneurs like networking group. And that was like kind of around the time where that was like really becoming popular. So someone here started that. I actually met the woman who started it through like a yoga class that she taught also. And I had, I just moved to Charleston. Like I didn't have any friends or anything and wasn't really getting out there. So I was like, I'm going to go to this yoga class. And then turns out she had started this women entrepreneurs networking group. So by putting myself out there, just like go to a yoga class, I landed in this like pool of people that were really like my people. And so a lot of my first clients came from that. And really like what I do now in my business is helping women entrepreneurs specifically, or like minority business owners. And I realized in that group that a lot of those women were just starting out, or, maybe they're pivoting and they really needed like good brand photography to market their business. So that's sort of like where that shift happened for me between like thinking I was going to do like magazine work kind of exclusively into like, oh, there's this need here in this group. So a lot of those people are creative entrepreneurs, like all different types of fields of work, but all women-owned businesses. So that's kind of where I started.
When you first started, like, were you, you're like thinking, I want to do my own thing. I want to have my own business. Were you kind of like open to anything? And then like you found this group and you're like, oh, there's a niche here. Like there's a need here. Let me kind of like pivot that way.
Yeah. Definitely. And especially at the beginning, I knew sort of like what I liked to do. Like I liked fashion and beauty and creativity and like all that stuff. So I knew that, but I wasn't really sure, especially at the beginning, like how to really niche down. And I don't think I really knew that concept yet about business. And so, yeah, I did a few weddings on my own, which I will never do again. Like the weddings are so hard and totally different. Like every type of photography is so different. And so, yeah, I did some weddings. I shot some like family portraits and I did like a newborn shoot. So at the beginning, like I just felt like, yeah, you have to sort of take on whatever you can, at least for me. I know it's not right for everybody, but it was good practice. I learned what I liked and didn't like. And so even after I sort of started focusing a little bit more on women-owned businesses and their headshots and brand photography, I was still taking on that other stuff because I wanted the income. And like I said, it was a good way to like practice and sort of figure out what you like and what is not really for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's super important. I think too, and I'm assuming now, like you really just specifically focus on women and like, people of color, entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm, yeah. And I do like, I shoot some events and, but they're very much in line with the brand photography as well. So it's like similar businesses who are having events, that kind of thing. So, like lifestyle brands and, so I think those are really fun too. So those are kind of my two main things.
Yeah. Let's talk about like niching down. I always like switch it up. Like, do I want to be more French or not? But like,
right, I
know. Yeah. So I love that. Like you, of course, in the beginning, it's great to just try a lot of different things, right? You're just figuring it out. And the only way you're going to figure it out is like doing it, right? Yeah. I love this. And so now you're really focusing on entrepreneurs. Cool.
Yeah,
so exactly. Talk to me. Sorry, I'm like, I'm so excited. I have so many questions.
You're so many good questions. I love this.
So let's talk about like where you're at in your business now, and like what types of like offerings do you have?
Yeah. So my kind of main offer right now is my VIP day brand shoots. So I have a full day option and a half day option. And so this is for people, even people who are starting out in their business who really want to start off in a great way. So like say they're redoing their website and they realize, oh, I need really great brand photography to sort of set my brand off in a great way. Like they have the graphic design and they have the website, but now they need brand photography, or maybe they're pivoting in their business or kind of starting something new. And so these brand photography shoots are kind of like the storytelling, kind of like a storytelling process. So I work with people to really tell the story of their brand and make sure we've got all the shots they could possibly need for their website and things that they're launching and social media and all of that. And what really sets my process apart is that I'm very organized and I love planning, which is not always the case for artists, right? But I've always just been like a very organized person. And I love, like, I always say like my second job, if I wasn't a photographer, would be like home organizer or interior designer, something like that. And so I really help my clients in these VIP day brand shoots to come up with a shot list, make sure they've got the prop list down. We come up with a schedule, help them with their wardrobe, everything. And so I really kind of take that stress off their plates because planning a brand shoot can be very, very stressful. So I kind of become like the creative director of their brand shoot as well as the photographer. So that's kind of my main offer for the photography right now. And then I've launched a course this year that sort of gives entrepreneurs who maybe aren't ready to hire someone like me that does the creative direction and the photography so they can become the creative director of their content creation. So they learn sort of that process of planning their brand shoots, but they can sort of do that on their own and either take the photos on their own if they're just kind of at a stage where they want to try that on their own or have a friend take photos, or if they want to go out and hire someone, they can still sort of have those skills to be able to creative direct their shoot and get the results that they want.
That's great. So what made you start this course? And also, this is what you were working on last year in our accelerator, right?
Yeah. So it was like pretty new. I think I've always known that I wanted to do some sort of online product or online course, but I kind of came up with the more solidified idea in like the spring. And then, yeah, for our accelerator, that's what I was primarily working on.
What made you decide to do this course? Like, did you see like a need like within your audience?
Yeah, I think, like I said, I've always kind of been interested in the world of online products and online business. So like Jenna Kutcher is someone I've always followed. And I've always thought that sort of industry was really interesting. And I never kind of came up with that idea that I felt like for myself, like, oh, here's my idea that is great that I can put out there in like a course form. And so, yeah, after just, 5 or 6 years of working with people one-on-one with the brand photography shoots, I kind of realized, I have so much information I can give people, and I've kind of nailed my process now. So I want to like be able to serve more people with this. And so that was really the impetus for creating the course. I finally felt like, okay, I can put this in like an online course form and give it to the masses. So yeah.
I love that. And also like you said, like you're bundling up all this years of experience and practice doing this and like offering that up, which is really great too. Like I was talking to my lash lady yesterday, and she has a very successful business in Rochester for like over 20 years. And she was talking to me about all these people who want to open up their own salons all the time, and they want to pick her brain, right? Like,
right. Yes.
And that's like, like all these people, that's like hours and hours of her time that she can't be working or whatnot.
Right.
And she's saying the same thing over and over and over again. And I love that too. I feel like it's kind of like with creatives, if they choose to go this way, it's like a 2.0 of their process, or like a 2.0 of their journey.
Right.
Is like distilling down, like taking all that experience and knowledge that you have, and like also bundling it and like giving it to like the next young creative to help them on their journey too. And I'm assuming too, like it's probably also just a lighter lift, right? Like I'm sure like planning brand, doing one-on-one stuff is pretty labor intensive, right?
Yes.
Time intensive. So diversifying your offerings too, like, right? Like hopefully the intention is to like get some of your time back.
Right, exactly. And I've even really done that within the VIP day brand shoots, because since those are more intense days, like full day, half day, I used to do like a 1 hour or 2 hour like headshot shoot. And I figured out for myself, like, that's just not how I want to work, because I just can't get the results that I'm envisioning for my clients in that amount of time. And so that's sort of like one of the pieces that led me to come up with this process of planning and organizing and all the pieces that go into that. So that's kind of helped me get to those kind of core like one-on-one offers. And then, yeah, from there, I was kind of able to like go back and think like, okay, how did I get from those kind of early ways of doing shoots to now, and what that process is. So yeah, I kind of distilled that into the course, which has been really fun.
Nice. Yeah. And, another great reason to kind of pivot things also maybe into something more passive, quote unquote, is you just became a mom this year.
Yes, I did have a 5-month-old. So yeah, she came in June. So it's been fun. It's just been the best.
Awesome. Yeah. How is life, and how has like being a mom changed your life and changed your business? Like what kind of things have you had to do in the past year or so to meet this like transition?
Yeah. Well, I was telling you before we got on too, that I found out I was pregnant like a week or two probably after we started our accelerator. So I was, we were planning and kind of thinking about it. And so I sort of knew that these two big things were happening at the same time. And so, yeah, going into motherhood, I definitely always had sort of that fear of like, how am I going to balance being a business owner and having a baby? Like, what is that going to look like? And I always knew that wasn't going to hold me back from having kids. But it was always like a fear in the back of my mind, like, how am I going to figure that out? And I knew I would somehow, but just wasn't sure what that would look like. And so, yeah, going into the accelerator, it was really exciting because I knew that I wanted to create something like a little more scalable than the one-on-one. And that was kind of the point of the accelerator. And so that was just like such a cool like timing thing that both of those things were happening at the same time. So I really spent my pregnancy like launching this course. So like we started our accelerator in like September, and then like December, January, February, I was like finishing all the content and got it out in March. And then I had her in June. And so it's been, kind of slow. It's totally different than marketing, like local one-on-one services. So I'm learning a ton of stuff along the way. But it's been cool to have that sort of, like you said, quote unquote, passive income option before she came. And like it's kind of set up now. So now I can just kind of work on marketing it and getting it out into the world.
Amazing.
This episode is brought to you by the Creator Jump Off community. You're a creative who's running a side hustle and you feel super overwhelmed and confused by everything you have to do. I have something real awesome for you. It's called the Creator Jump Off community, and it's built to help you feel organized, focused, and empowered so you can hit your business goals this year. This is not a get-rich-quick thing. It's legit business training, community, and coaching, all taken from my experience as a creative entrepreneur for over 15 years. Life is too short to make art that you hate. Come check out the Creator Jump Off community and see how you can kickstart a profitable side hustle starting today. Go to nataliemertz.com/creatorjumpoff to learn more.
Talk to me about the process that you go through with clients on building their brand story. Like, what does that mean? And what does that entail?
Yeah. So I also in my sort of process do a lot of like research. So when somebody comes to me, I even like before we get on a consult call, I'm sending them a few questions to ask them like, what's their business all about? Like kind of what do you do? What are your goals? Goals are really important in figuring out sort of the storyline of a brand shoot. Yeah. So I ask them like some of those initial questions. And then once we actually start working together, I send them another questionnaire that gets really deep into their business, goals, what they offer, their process. And I take a lot of that information and turn it into shot ideas. So like say their process, for example, like for me, I did my own brand shoot for myself. I did like self-portraits essentially like in my office here. I've got like a mood board set up. And so I thought about my process with clients. And so those things like sending a questionnaire or building kind of like an inspiration mood board with them. And I actually made a shot list based on that. So I have pictures of myself like working on the mood board and have my camera out and my laptop and a printed out like shoot planning guide that I give them. And so I really take those process, like their process, their goals, and turn those into shot ideas. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you ever have clients who are like, I have no idea. I have no idea, like
totally,
like how I appear, like like what the concept or what the story is, and like if you do, like how do you kind of help them? Like how do you guys work together to develop a story?
Yeah, I would say that's most people really. So, and that's a big reason why I created the course too, because the biggest things that people come to me, when they're about to do a shoot, or they're just asking me questions about brand photography in general, they're always, like, I don't have ideas. I don't feel creative. I don't know how to come up with a shot list, or it's like the body image, like look kind of stuff. Like, I don't know what to wear. I need to lose 10 pounds first, all of that stuff. And we all have it. Like, even I know sort of all the tricks of the trade to like pose in front of the camera and that kind of thing. And like, we all feel awkward in front of the camera. So everybody has these concerns when they're starting to do a brand shoot. Most people, I would say. But yeah, to speak to like specifically, like I don't have ideas for shots. That's where like my process with the questionnaire really comes in handy, because they don't really necessarily think like, oh, my process can be the brand shoot, essentially. Like that's kind of my story. I also ask about their origin story. So like for me, as an example, there's these line of books, the American Girl library books. Do you remember those? Like from like late 90s, early 2000s. So like I loved those books. They had, all different types of topics, but there was one about like having a business. And it was like little stories of girls that had started dog walking businesses and things like that. So that book was like hugely influential to me. And so there was like a page in that book that had a girl's office, and it like pointed out all the little things you needed to have in your office. And so that was just like I just always remember that. I still have the book. It's up on my bookshelf. And so I sort of used that as inspiration for like the look of my office and wanted to show that off in my brand photos. And that sounds really conceptual, but that can be like where someone like me can really help with a brand shoot, because I can look from like a bird's eye perspective at your business and your answers to those questions about your origin story and your process and your goals, and really think like, okay, how could we make this visual? So that's kind of where I come into the process. And in the course, I kind of teach you how to go through that process for yourself.
Fun. Yeah. I love that. I love your inspo. And also like your office is so, so gorgeous when you said like, if you weren't doing photography, you would do like home organization. I can tell.
Yes, right?
It's so lovely. It's so really,
thank you.
And you put your books in rainbow order, and I so appreciate that.
Yes. And it's just so funny to look back at like that American Girl library book and be like, that is just so me. Like I was reading that book as like a 7-year-old or 8-year-old, and I knew that I loved it then, but then looking back on it and kind of thinking about my own origin story, I'm like, it's just so funny, like how that really translated to what I do now. So it's pretty cool to look back on that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, there's so much from my childhood that I pull into work that I do and stuff. And really like, I'm always like on a journey, and like I love finding new inspiration and stuff, but it's like, I'm interested more or less in the same shit that I was when I was a kid. And,
exactly.
And I think too, something that I've seen like as a graphic designer and working with clients who are not so creative, right? Like they have no idea, like the brand concept or whatever the brand story is like, I try to like same as you, trying to dig in there of like, who are you? Or like a funny story, or like if we were working together and you like lit up telling me about like your American Girl, do you remember her name? The business?
Oh my gosh, I had so many. I don't remember in the book like what that was, but I had all the dolls, so I had like all the things.
I had one too. I don't remember her name.
Between me and my sister, there was like Molly, Samantha, Josefina, Addie, so many.
I can't remember which one I had. But yeah, if you were telling me, the story about like the business American Girl and like seeing you light up, I'm like, ooh, there's something there. So it doesn't always have to be like the inspiration or whatever. It doesn't have to be like one-to-one, like I have a business and I need to, you know what I mean? Or whatever, like, or I have, I love to like make the logo analogy of like, if someone is opening a gym, we don't ever need to put a barbell in the logo.
Right.
You don't ever have to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
you don't
that's
have to.
Self-explanatory in the name or like whatever the business. Let's never do that. But like what is interesting about the gym owner or the location or the unique kind of gym experience that you're offering or whatever.
Right. So it's more about you and like your process and how you do things. And that really sets you apart. I love that you mentioned that, because that's exactly what I'm trying to do too with people's brand photos. Is we're not just like putting you in front of a laptop like everybody else. And like, we might do that, like, cause we do that, right? Like we're all on our computers as part of our work, but there's also, even if you're mostly on the computer all day, like I said, like I printed out my brand shoot planning guide. I never give that to people in like a hard copy form, but in pictures, like if you print that out, that can be a really cool way to show off your process. That's not just like you in front of a computer. So there are really cool ways to like use styling and use those really unique things about you and your process that you can show off in your photos.
And that's what people want to see is like, what is, what is unique, what is interesting about you. And it flavors the experience of it.
Yes.
And it's what I like to call like my, what I do like in branding, I call it left of center. Right. So again, like the gym analogy, okay, you have a gym, you have a fitness center or whatever. And I'll like ask all the gym owner all these questions and stuff that may have nothing to do with fitness or owning a gym or getting swole or anything, and and then I find out the gym owner is like obsessed with dogs. Like he has a dog, he loves his dog or whatever. And I'm like, tell me more. And it's like, so maybe there's a dog in the logo, you know what I mean? Or maybe the dog, there's something about dogs in the brand story or whatnot. And so it's like, what is that left of center thing that's going to really make you stand out, against like other gyms or what, other people in your same industry. And it's like all that shit that makes you like quirky or weird or unique or whatever, right? Like it's, inspiration can come from anywhere.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of people don't really think about that. I think they're, so focused on, especially if they're not necessarily in like a creative industry. Like I work with lawyers and real estate agents and, not just creatives. And so if they're not in that mindset, I think it's really hard to even, like, that's not even on their mind of like, oh, something about me can be in my brand, right? And so I always ask that question too, when I'm meeting with people is like, what is that? Like, is there anything about you that you might want to infuse into your brand? Like if you have an obsession with Star Wars or like there's a dog that sits at your feet all day at your office. Like I always love to ask that question. And a lot of times that ends up being storylines in our brand shoots. Like I did one a couple weeks ago. There's a woman that's starting, she's actually a food photographer. She has been for like 15 years and she's starting a vegan food website because veganism really helped like an autoimmune disease that she had. So she's sort of shifting into this, but using photography to, kind of start off her new website. And so, we did the shots of her in the kitchen and shots of her doing like a little food photography studio setup. But we also did some shots of her like on the beach with her surfboard and shots of her with her dog and, just those personality things to sort of add to that story because she's not just about being a food photographer or being a vegan food writer, reviewer. She also is like a person with interests and that's what people want to see for sure.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Right. Like what else are you bringing to the table? And people want to know what your perspective is. I want to circle back to something that you mentioned about the process, body image.
Yes.
And like being self-conscious. Yes, it's things that everyone struggles with. I think especially women. I certainly do. Yes. I've always had that thought of like, I need new photography. I need to lose 10 pounds. So how do you navigate that with clients? And if someone is, thinking about doing a brand shoot with you, hopefully, or just in general, like how do you kind of talk through that with clients and help them, ease their mind about it?
Totally. Yeah. Like I said, it's definitely one of the biggest struggles people have and barriers to like just being ready to do it. And I really just tell people like, it's so hard because that stuff is so ingrained, like you said, especially with women, like we are just so insecure about all of that stuff. And I really just wish for people that we could just, I don't want to say get over it because it's not that easy, but like you just have to sort of take action. It's not getting over it. It's just taking action and the confidence comes through taking action. And there's just like to ease people's minds. I tell them like, I am there to help you pose. I'm not going to let you be in like an unflattering position. Like I will help you along the way. I think that really helps ease people's minds. Like I've had so much experience looking at people through the camera and sort of figuring out like what looks good, what looks awkward, and I very gently sort of coach people through that. So I think that is really helpful for people. In my course, I have like a whole posing guide because people are like, what do I do with my hands? You just freeze up in front of the camera. Like I said, I do too. But you just have to sort of breathe through it and let the photographer kind of coach you through. And another thing I really encourage is getting your hair and makeup done and maybe even hiring a wardrobe stylist. And that sounds like so bougie to people, but there's stores that even have like free styling services. So the main reason being for that is not just that you're going to look amazing on camera, but it takes so much stress off of you to have those things just kind of done for you. And it really does boost your confidence on camera because you haven't stressed out about curling your own hair and picking out your own outfits. And those people are experts that know what looks great on camera. They know, a stylist is going to know like your body type and what's going to look great on you. So for people who are who seem like really nervous about being on camera and feeling really insecure, I really encourage them to book those people because it can really help just get rid of that stress, at least a little bit. And I know it's not, for a lot of people, it's never going to go away 100%. It's just not. but those little things can help for sure.
Yeah. Yes. And I think about RuPaul says chin down, long neck, like shoulders back.
Yep.
I always try to do that when I'm shooting, like shoulders back and down,
Yep.
long neck, and like chin down.
Yeah. And yeah, one of my favorite tricks is to tell people you think about like a string pulling you up from like the crown of your head. So yeah, it's like shoulders back and then your head's kind of like lifted. So it just gives you like a little boost, right? So there's a lot of little tips and tricks. So yeah, you're not alone. You know, when you're on a shoot, you've got the photographer, and you can do some research ahead of time too. Like just go on Pinterest and look at poses you like. And, you know, there's tons of those videos on TikTok. Like, here's some great poses, flattering poses. So like, I tell people too, like literally just, you'll feel so silly, but just practice them in your bedroom, and like even have like a trusted friend take a picture of you on your iPhone and sort of see like what you like, because it sounds silly. And some people have this, some people don't, but like a lot of people know like what side of their face they like better in photos. I know I have that. Some people don't, but like it's good to know those things going into a photo shoot. So you have a little bit of like knowledge about yourself and how you feel in a certain pose before you go into it.
Yeah, I think too, trying to feel good. You know what I mean? Before I like shoot video or whatever, I usually like getting ready, like, because, you know, for this podcast or whatever, like I did my own hair and makeup and whatnot. But I like crank music and just like, you know what I mean? Like get my energy up. And like, I think too, just like even for myself is like feeling comfortable. Like I was going to wear this new sweater that I got that I'm going to return because I don't like it. I'm like, let me get one like thing out of it. And it was so comfortable. And I was like, no, I really like, I want to be comfortable. Like, you know, I know my silhouettes, right? I think just like knowing your body and knowing like what clothes feel good on your body. Yeah. And I will say too, like in my own experience, I had a photo shoot years ago. I think it was like 7 years ago. I still use that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Is that the picture of you with the sunglasses?
Oh, that was also from years ago, but that was from an event that I did years ago. Thank you. But there's, I lived in Bali for like 6 months, and I made friends with the photographer, and I hired her to do a brand shoot. It was very like basic, like we just kind of shot around Ubud and stuff, but I still use them. They're really fantastic. And so, like I said, I think that was like 6 or 7 years ago, and they're great shots. I mean, I'm much heavier now than I was then, but they look great and they've lasted me. And I've made a lot of different businesses between then and now, and I use them, you know. So, and also like I feel good about those photos, right? Like they were done right. They look great. There's like different scenes. I'm wearing different things and I feel good about them. And so like, I'm going to put them up on my website. I'm going to promote myself more, you know, like it's really, you know, brand photography can be such a powerful tool. Yes, to market our business, but also I think it like, you know, like Rachel Rogers, you know, my Lord and Savior.
Right, exactly.
Talks about like if we feel good, you know what I mean? Like getting our hair done or makeup or whatever, like wearing something good that like when I feel good, then I show up more in my life and in my business.
Yeah, I love that you said that because that's so true. Like, especially with the hair makeup, and if you spend the time to set your brand shoot up in a way that, you know, like for longevity, right? Like you said, you've used these for years and years and you loved how you looked, you loved how you felt. Like brand photography is an investment, but it's so worth an investment in money and time and energy to like, because there's a lot of steps to setting up a brand shoot. But if you do that work and really be intentional about it, you will get a lot of use and variety out of your photos, especially if you feel like comfortable and confident when you're, you know, you might not feel 100% confident. I get it. But, you know, if you feel good about yourself in your photos, they will last you a long time.
I love it.
And you show up more for sure.
And speaking of showing up, you know, more, you know, for yourself, for your business and stuff. So what do you do as a creative to like fill up your well, you know, like to fill up your inspiration? Or whatever, take care of yourself. What does that look like?
Yeah, it's definitely been hard for sure, right, with the baby, but it's been good. I think her schedule is always changing, but I'm like, I sort of in a day, I'm like, okay, I have this block of time and this block of time to work or do something else. And so I'm really trying to be intentional about using at least one of those blocks of time during the day to like do something for myself. And, I love like organizing my house and doing like design projects around my house. So that's kind of a fun hobby for me. And then, like I said, when I was little, I scrapbooked and I still do that. So I'm like working on her baby book and I have some other little photo albums. So I'll do those, even if it's like 10 minutes a day or something, trying to exercise in the morning. And like this stuff doesn't always happen every day, but I try to kind of weave in those little things for myself amidst all the work and all the baby stuff.
Yeah, you don't seem stressed. I mean, I'm sure it's really challenging, but just those little things. When I'm on a call heavy day, I'll clean. Like I just need to do something physical and like and not in front of a screen. So
cleaning's a big one for me too.
Yeah. And so you are full-time in your business.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Very cool. And so you started in 2016.
Yeah, about then. And I was kind of doing like some other jobs and my business. And then I went full time in 2018.
Got it. Okay.
So it's been about 5 years, I guess, right? And like, what year is it?
I know. I always have to do math on years. I don't have
I know.
I'm not good at time anymore.
Yeah, me either. I think COVID really did that to us.
Yes. No. Yeah. COVID fucked up everything.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Well, Abby, this was so lovely. Thank you so much for
fun.
taking this time. It was really great to see you again. And I hope we stay in touch.
Yes, me too.
Will you share where people can find you on the internet? How can people work with you?
Yeah. So my website is abbymurphyphoto.com. It's ABBYMURPHY photo. So that's my website. And then same thing on Instagram. It's Abby Murphy Photo. And on my website and Instagram, there's links to my custom shoots and then my course as well. So the course is available all year, so you can jump in anytime. So those are kind of my main spots. I also have an email list. But yeah, all that's on the website.
Awesome. So Abby, thank you so much. Yes. Hopefully we can definitely do it again. And maybe I'll come down to Charleston and do a brand shoot. I love Charleston.
Yes. It's so fun. Have you been before?
I love Charleston. And also I've embraced my curls. And
love it.
I'm ready for the Charleston humidity.
Yes. Oh, it's intense here. It's finally cooled off. I'm like November. Thank goodness. We're in winter, so we should be cooled off. But yeah, summer's kind of brutal here. I just kind of hibernate. So
yeah. I feel well now that winter's coming up here in the north. I would love to come down.
Yes, come here. It's a little more mild. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Abby. I really appreciate your time, and thank you everyone for listening. And we'll talk to you soon. Hey there. Thank you so much for joining our podcast today. I hope you really enjoyed it. If you would consider liking, subscribing, and even leaving us a comment. This way, it will help us to keep the podcast alive and continue to bring you some really awesome interviews and nuggets of creative wisdom. So thank you again for checking us out. I'll see you next time.